My name is Frederick Muya, Senior Advisor for Africa International Organization of Employers. This meeting is a culmination of a number of meetings that we've held, organized by African employers who are reflecting on the African growth story, and now they can make sure that this growth story benefits the youth. We are very pleased to have very distinguished panelists. My job is just to introduce the moderator, John Sibi Okumu. He's a well-known journalist. John is also an actor. He's acted in quite a number of movies, so no selfies yet with him. John is very passionate about the youth. In East Africa, they refer to him as Mwalimu, which means teacher. He presents a number of programs that are watched throughout English-speaking Africa. John has also moderated important sessions on behalf of the World Bank, and we felt that we needed somebody like him who is very passionate about the youth to take us through this discussion. So, John, welcome.
How wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Nairobi. It's my pleasure to invite Ms. Linda Kromyong of the IOE to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, John. My name is Linda Kromyong. I'm the Secretary General of the International Organization of Employers. And I really welcome all here in this room. It's great that at this point of the day, at a very busy International Labour Conference, we have almost a full room. So I really thank you for that. International Organization of Employers, we are the Secretariat of the Employers Group within the International Labour Organization. And my members are employers' federations in over 145 countries worldwide. In total, we've got 157 member federations. And our key priorities are about sustainable enterprises, and sustainable enterprises also create jobs, decent jobs. And jobs are important for everyone, but also for our young people. I've got a son, you have children, we all would like to have a good future for them. We have many initiatives on our way that look into youth unemployment. One of them is the GAN, the Global Apprenticeship Network, that really focuses on creating skills for business and jobs for youth, which is a public-private partnership, also being active in Africa. And what we're going to do here today is really, with a very great panel, look into the rural economy and its specifics there. I was earlier this year in Kenya and Tanzania, where, especially in Tanzania, there was a strong focus on the agricultural sector, with many employers' federations and business being present there. So I have understood the importance and relevance of the agricultural sector for Africa. I'm Dutch. Many of the flowers that we consider as being Dutch are actually grown in Africa. So I think that's a great example about global trade. And agriculture is important in Africa because it is a very important driver of the economy. It's a very important driver for trade. And therefore it is a creator for jobs, where we have issues, concerns, but also, I would say, solutions to be addressed here in this panel. I would leave it here for now. I really count on a great discussion, interaction with you here in the room. I will need to apologize up front that I will not be able to stay the entire session. There's other things going on during the international conference as well. But I do hope you all stay until the end. And at the end, there's also a reception being held next door at the Vieux-Bois. So I would like to give the floor back to our moderator. Thank you, John.
Thank you. May I now call upon Mr. Jamal Belarache, President of the Task Force on Employment and Employability.
Merci John pour me donner cette opportunité d'abord de vous remercier d'être là. Juste quelques rappels d'histoire. Il y a 3 ans, nous créons cette task force parce que nous voulions commencer à réfléchir sur la manière d'adresser le chômage des jeunes en Afrique et ce chômage qui intègre tous les mois 1 million de chômeurs, 1 million de jeunes par mois sur le continent africain. Cette task force, depuis 3 ans, elle a travaillé, elle a fait 3 événements et aujourd'hui elle a sorti ce livre blanc que vous avez tous entre les mains. Un des axes majeurs de ce livre blanc est de se concentrer sur le domaine de l'agriculture et la transformation de l'agriculture parce que nous savons qu'il est générateur de beaucoup d'emplois et pour les jeunes en particulier, à condition que cette agriculture soit plutôt créatrice de valeur et qu'elle sorte, je dirais, d'une économie solidaire pour devenir une véritable économie à création de valeur. Et donc, cette table ronde d'aujourd'hui se veut pour objectif d'abord de vous sensibiliser, mais ensuite de vous donner rendez-vous pour la suite des opérations, à savoir l'après-conférence où dans chacun des pays, nous devrons ensemble déployer ce programme sur l'emploi. Pour vous dire également, et je le dirai tout à l'heure en mode clôture, mais la task force a fini sa mission aujourd'hui et plus tard, elle va se transformer en fondation pour continuer le travail. Et je vous inviterai donc tout à l'heure à comprendre quel est l'objectif de cette fondation. Merci à tous les panélistes et merci pour votre présence. Et surtout, merci pour le débat et sur les idées qui peuvent sortir pour travailler sur la création d'emplois sur un continent africain qui a besoin de créer du rêve, de la valeur pour plus de 70 millions de jeunes qui sont au chômage aujourd'hui en Afrique. Merci.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my great pleasure to present our panelists for this evening. But before I do that, I'd like to give you what the Americans call a heads up, and that is that we should be out of this building by 7 o'clock. And my aim as moderator is to have as many of you as possible participate by flagging, by parking various issues that arise from this topic. I am perfectly clear in my mind that we cannot exhaust this topic in 45 minutes, but I think it's a continuing debate, it's a continuing discussion, and as has been said before, we have a very distinguished panel to begin a conversation that involves those of us here. To my immediate right, this gentleman whom I'm going to embrace is the Secretary General of UNCTAD, Dr. Muhisa Kitui. Next to him is, on your sheets, if you have them, is the Minister of Labour and Social Security of Cameroon, His Excellency Grégoire Owona. We've had Jamal to my immediate left. Next to Jamal is Mr. Tariq Choho, CEO of OCP Africa. Next to Mr. Choho is Mr. Mamadou Diallo, Director of Human and Trade Union Rights. I think the acronym is the ITUC. And at the very end of the table, we have Ms. Jacqueline Mugo, Secretary General of Business Africa. And sorry, thank you. I left one gentleman next to His Excellency the Minister. We have Mr. Fellow John, Mr. John Sendanyoye, Head of Unit, the ILO Secretarial Policies Department. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to my panel. Right. I have one house rule to my panel, I hope they'll oblige, is that none of their interventions in this first round of discussion should be more than 2 minutes long. So I've appealed to them, and anybody who doesn't oblige, I hope you have some rotten tomatoes to throw at them. No, you don't. Anyway, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to present a set of scenarios which leapt out at me in my researches. I don't doubt for 1 minute the nobility, the necessity of this endeavor, which is to create jobs for young Africans. The statistic is clear. If we look at people from the ages of 0 years to 24, then 60% of the African continent falls within that bracket. And of course, there are people here gathered who see the agriculture sector in particular as a tremendous vehicle, a job-rich sector. But ladies and gentlemen, are we forgetting that in Africa, young men in particular inherit the land, and that in order for you to inherit the land, you have to wait for your father to die? So if you're 30 years of age and dad is 60, you might have to wait a long time till it's your turn. When we talk about statistics, about 45% of the women in certain countries being unemployed, we must remember that in our culture, the women who so valiantly toil the land do not own it. Are we forgetting that Africa is the continent of ethnicity? If I come from the west of Kenya and we could grow a year's supply of rice in the west of Kenya, this might not work to the advantage of those in power who come from the center of Kenya. So why should they let this richness go elsewhere and lose votes in the next elections? Are we forgetting that young men whom I encounter in villages in my ancestral village, their biggest dream is to head for the city? Those who've never been to Nairobi, and I'm speaking as a Kenyan, those who've never been to Nairobi, I have blood relations who are 30 and thereabouts, who have never been to Nairobi. And their greatest desire is to go to Nairobi, become security guards, become hotel watchmen, I don't know. But they want to go to Nairobi, where the cities are paved with gold. Are we forgetting that when we talk about 60% of the world's arable land being in Africa, that 60% of arable land is in countries like the DRC, which are plagued by political strife, wars, conflict, rape, pillage. And we're saying that there's going to be enough time to turn that acreage into a breadbasket for the world. Are we forgetting that there is an ongoing labor drain where our youth are prepared to risk life and limb to cross the Mediterranean to form part of the refugee crisis? Are we forgetting that our young men are prepared to join fanatical militias where they will be paid to fight and earn some money that way? Are we forgetting that our food produce in particular is largely rejected by overseas markets? Are we forgetting that most workers in Africa are badly paid and overworked, no matter how old they are? So I'm not trying to dampen this conversation with pessimism, but I am saying that, to use the English expression, those elephants do exist in the room. And just by way of introducing our panelists to respond to any one of those elephants, large or small, I would like to start with Dr. Muhisa Kitui, Secretary General of UNCTAD.
Thank you very much, John. My 2 minutes. One, the issues you're raising are interrelated, but I just want to flag up one or two issues. One, that migration is not a cause, it's a consequence of failed agricultural policies. If 69% of Africa's rural population is, poor population is in the countryside, and livelihoods are not supported by sound investment policies and government practices, then they vote with their feet. So part of stemming migration is building livelihoods in the countryside. What does it take? Investment in enabling infrastructure, not just roads and bridges and river and the waterways, but also an enabling social environment for young entrepreneurs to stem the desire to go into towns where they can have a good education for their children by staying in the countryside to look at opportunities there. 2, 3 critical things that need to be done. Number one, land rights. The African woman farmer continues to toil, half of them as workers for their husbands. She does the weeding, she delivers the crop to the factory. At the end of the month, the check comes in the name of her husband. Technology enables to separate that crisis. I'm seeing increasingly in places like Kenya, horticultural women farmers get their payment on their mobile phone, which excludes the intermediary called a man who will otherwise skim away the profits from her work. 2, critically important, Africa's regional integration is the greatest impetus for Africa's rural agricultural economy. If you check what has happened, the main mistake that has been done in the regional architecture has been that city-based manufacturers, mostly of consumer goods, negotiate as representing the private sector. They have access to the market of the neighbors, but the reality is that the trade of the border communities is treated as if it is smuggling. You can go into a situation where you have a customs union, the urban enterprises are exporting to the neighbors, the rural populations by the border are arrested for smuggling. And a terribly irrational arithmetics. Africa has to copy from the greater Mekong Valley experience of Southeast Asia. The architecture of regional integration must start with the building blocks around the borders, the felt needs of those communities. They will deal with your food question, they will address what infrastructure you need. And finally, if my 2 minutes is almost over.
They're over.
Okay,
But, yeah. So
I'll come back.
thank you. You'll excuse me for not taking a hierarchical approach to calling upon. I know there is a minister in our midst, but his turn will come. I'd like to go to Mr. Sendanyoye, whom I'm seeing as a researcher. I've read, courtesy of the internet, many of the papers that he's written about other such issues. So, as the man with the research, what is your take on some of those elephants in the room?
Thanks, John. It's going to be very easy for me, actually, to follow up on what Mr. Kitui has said. The biggest problems we are faced with are problems of policy development. Africa is the youngest continent in terms of population. Approximately 70% of our populations are under 30 years old. We also happen to have one of the most fertile lands. And yet, Africa is food insecure. We consume food that we don't produce and produce food that we don't consume quite often. Mr. Kitui pointed out the fact of very low integration in Africa. It goes beyond low integration among countries in the same regions. We actually also have a problem of internal integration. Quite frequently, many parts of Africa are capable of producing, as I said earlier on, what other people within the country, especially in cities, would be able to consume. Unfortunately, the policy environment is such that we are unable to convert our products, store them sufficiently long enough to be able to transport them from where they are grown to where they are consumed. Which brings me back to what I said earlier on about the fact that Africa has one of the most arable, fertile land anywhere on this planet. What we need are policies that allow the potential for job creation in the countryside through agriculture to actually be realized, so that it moves away from being a potential to reality. And this is quite possible with proper policies to raise decent work that actually keeps our young people on the land rather than immigrate either across the oceans or from the rural areas to the cities, where they just join the ranks of armies of unemployed. I think I will leave it at that as an introductory statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now, in my mind's eye, thinking about the idea of workers' rights and of young people as workers. And I challenge you, Mr. Jallow, to respond to my statement, overworked, underpaid. When the young begin to work, are they going to be an alternative form of slave labor?
Merci John de m'avoir donné le plus gros éléphant, c'est très gentil de ta part. Je crois que la question, vous l'avez vous-même posée. Si nous regardons le secteur agricole, je pense que nous trouverons très rarement un agriculteur riche. Et pourtant, la majorité de la population africaine active est dans le secteur agricole. Cela pose évidemment un problème, même si nous ne pouvons pas entrer dans les détails. Il y a certes une richesse, comme vous l'avez dit, il y a les terres, il y a la possibilité d'exploitation. Mais qu'est-ce qui fait que l'écrasante majorité des jeunes Africains quittent les zones rurales pour aller se réfugier dans les villes? C'est simplement parce qu'il n'y a pas eu une politique agricole pertinente qui puisse leur permettre de jouir et d'aspirer à des richesses sur leur terroir. Le second élément que je voudrais évoquer, c'est par rapport à la nature même de l'emploi dans le secteur agricole. Sans généraliser, nous pouvons identifier deux situations. L'exploitation familiale, très souvent, ou communautaire, et d'un autre côté, l'exploitation de petites fermes avec employant des ouvriers, ce qu'on appelle les ouvriers agricoles. Si vous regardez du côté de l'exploitation familiale ou communautaire, évidemment, il n'y a pratiquement de salaire, il n'y a pas de revenus, si ce n'est en nature. Si vous regardez du côté de l'exploitation à travers les fermes comme la culture des fleurs, j'ai été au Kenya, à quelques 100 km de Nairobi, dans la vallée du Rift, pour visiter certaines fermes qui produisent des fleurs. Ce que vous constatez, c'est que les conditions de travail, comme vous l'avez dit, sont extrêmement difficiles. Les ouvriers agricoles n'ont pas de contrat permanent, ils ont un contrat à durée déterminée, ils sont quelquefois employés à la journée, ils exercent dans des conditions difficiles, mais également avec des heures impossibles. C'est-à-dire qu'ils ont même des heures supplémentaires qui ne sont pas comptabilisées. Et le revenu est extrêmement faible. Il ne parvient même pas à satisfaire les besoins les plus élémentaires de ces travailleurs. C'est pour cette raison que nous avons dit, si nous voulons exploiter le secteur agricole comme un grenier possible pour offrir de l'emploi aux jeunes, et j'y reviendrai certainement plus tard en détail, il est nécessaire que nous procédions à une transformation structurelle de l'agriculture africaine. Je pense que c'est la seule perspective et c'est le seul élément qui puisse nous permettre de progresser. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to, in my mind's eye, adopt a regional perspective, and I'm going to ask His Excellency Grégoire Owona, first of all, and Ms. Jacqueline Mugo, second of all, and say, in Central Africa, where you come from, in East Africa, where you come from, do all or none of the above exist, and how are you handling them? The scenarios which I painted. Minister, if you'd go first, please.
Merci, John, de me donner la parole. Mesdames les ministres et messieurs les ministres, messieurs les PDG, je voudrais remercier déjà les organisateurs de ce panel et les féliciter pour cette opportunité qu'ils nous offrent, pour cette initiative. Avant de répondre à votre question très directement, qui est d'ailleurs, la réponse est oui, ces problèmes existent, avant d'y répondre et d'y aller peut-être un peu plus loin, je voudrais dire qu'il n'y a pas mieux pour poser ce problème que cet aéropage des directeurs généraux, de PDG, qui en réalité sont ceux-là même qui doivent créer la richesse chez nous en Afrique, ceux qui créent l'emploi, parce que on s'est souvent perdu en pensant que c'est les ministères qui vont faire cela, et ce n'est pas par hasard, ou c'est peut-être un hasard si vous avez réservé de donner la parole au ministre plus loin sans respecter la hiérarchie. C'est en fait parce que c'est vous ici, c'est vous qui allez créer des richesses, c'est vous qui allez créer les emplois par ce que vous faites. Combien de personnes ont rêvé d'être ingénieurs? Combien de personnes ont rêvé d'être médecins, ont rêvé d'être pilotes? Mais il s'agit déjà de créer chez ces jeunes l'envie d'aller au village produire les plus belles tomates, de produire les plus gros macabots. Et ce rêve-là, comment vous allez faire pour le créer, messieurs, mesdames, les créateurs de richesses, vous les créateurs d'emplois? Parce que c'est là le grand challenge aujourd'hui, de faire que ces jeunes, vers qui nous voulons tous dire aujourd'hui, allez faire l'agriculture, c'est l'agriculture de l'avenir, d'accord, c'est peut-être pour les employés, peut-être pour qu'ils gagnent un peu d'argent, mais comment ils vont travailler sans aimer ce qu'ils font? C'est là mon humble avis, c'est le plus gros challenge aujourd'hui. Le Cameroun a fait pas mal de choses déjà dans ce domaine, mais je ne suis pas sûr qu'il ait atteint le niveau où on va dire que les jeunes vont vraiment aimer, comme les autres, dans les autres professions, ils ont aimé faire l'agriculture. Le Cameroun connaît tous ces problèmes qui ont été évoqués, ils existent bel et bien, mais pour cela, le président Biya, dans sa nouvelle politique agricole, a mis en place un certain nombre de projets sur lesquels on pourra revenir, parce que déjà l'agriculture participe pour près de 20% dans le PIB, ce qui est quand même encore faible par rapport au potentiel, parce que le Cameroun est un des pays où les terres sont arables et où on peut faire beaucoup de choses. Et vous avez ici, et quand on reviendra, on en parlera, le directeur de ce que le Cameroun a appelé le Fonds national de l'emploi, qui anime pas mal de projets. Le ministère de l'Agriculture anime des projets. Le ministère chargé des petites et moyennes entreprises pour susciter des vocations chez les jeunes entrepreneurs. Mais les problèmes qui ont été évoqués restent les mêmes et sont encore sans solution véritablement durable.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Ms. Jacqueline, yeah, brilliant. So, we're doing well. I think, we'll deserve our clap at the end. Ms. Mugo, Kenya, East Africa, speak for us.
Do most of the situations that you painted at the beginning exist in East Africa? Yes, by and large, because Africa is by and large the same. But I think there are countries that are making progress where there have been changes, particularly on land tenure laws. In Kenya, for example, women can now inherit land, so they don't necessarily have to wait for the father to expire or decide to divide his land before he goes. But I think the key thing in Africa is that if you look by and large at our villages, we're still doing agriculture pretty much the way we did it in the 60s when I was a very young person. That means I was born by then. No. So I think one of the key things we should look at is how to change the story and how Africa can begin to focus on more labor-intensive crops as opposed to staple food crops. Of course, we should produce food to feed ourselves because that's what our grandparents did. They didn't buy vegetables from the market. Why is it that we're now buying vegetables from the markets? Why is it that we're buying tomatoes from the markets? The least Africa should do is be able to put food on the table and money in the pockets of young people to keep them in the villages. But by and large and beyond putting food on the table is the need to focus perhaps on labor-intensive agriculture, if you look at horticultural products, for instance, which are more labor intensive, we would be able to create more jobs there, because whereas growing 1,000 hectares of staple food crops, for instance, employ only 10 to 50 people, if you put the same number of hectares, 1,000, to growing oranges, for instance, you'll be employing 800 people. So I think this is where the shift needs to happen, so that we can increase wage-paying employment in rural areas and keep our people there, and also create sources of export earnings for our people. Because we've been talking about the need to do value addition for many, many years, but we're not doing much about it. The policies are there. We're very good at creating policies. It's time, I think, that we started implementing those policies to be able to change that story. If you take the example of a country like Mozambique, where they grow cassava, they are actually not growing cassava purely for food, but also to produce ethanol and cooking fuel. So that is able to give them more income than if they just produce it for cassava. So yes, produce cassava for consumption, but also get byproducts that we can produce from these same staple food crops to be able to sell on the international market. My final point was that, why is it that African foods are not so popular in the global market? We need to create an appetite, I think, globally for our own African food, so that ugali, or called sima or fufu, can be sold in international supermarkets, the same as we buy rice from all over the world.
Thank you very much. Mr. Choho, I'm going to, in all fairness, give you slightly more time, because I see you as the CEO. The P in OCP stands for phosphate, which for me reads fertilizers, a giant fertilizer company in operation for the last 94 years. I also see you as a North African by virtue of your name, and I also have a statistic that says that of the young people unemployed, the greatest percentage, 45%, belongs to your part of the world. So, as the boss of a huge company, what are you doing to reverse that situation?
Thank you, John. Good afternoon. I'm North African, but I'm also African. So I'm here to talk about Africa and what OCP is doing in Africa to reverse that situation. So in Morocco, OCP is the largest company and creates a lot of jobs. We have 23,000 employees in Morocco. But our idea now is to ship that model to Africa, to elsewhere. What we did in Morocco is we stopped just extracting rock phosphate and export it to Europe, but we transformed the phosphate in Morocco to make fertilizers and to export all over the world. And this has made a success story for the company. And this is the success story that we want to share with Africa. So that's why we created OCP Africa. We created OCP Africa because of all the reasons you mentioned and more. You can list and stay all night talking about all the problems in Africa, about the risks, about corruption, about all the elephants that you mentioned or issues, because I like elephant. I don't like to compare them to problems. But and for us, we say it's time for us to go in Africa and say, why is the agriculture in Africa so weak, so poor? Why is the utilization of fertilizers so reduced, etc.? And what do we need to do about it? And when you try to answer those questions, you have to resolve some of the issues that you have mentioned. So, but the way we look at it is agriculture is not just farming. Agriculture is agronomy first, so that you come up with the right fertilizer that you need to use. You need to come up with the right seeds, with the right crop protection. You need to have the right techniques and not just use our ancestors' techniques, because they don't work, they don't feed us. We believe that Africa can feed the whole planet, and today it doesn't feed itself. And so we have to tackle all the issues: agronomy, farming, seeds, fertilizer, crop protection, and then also distribution of the inputs, distribution of the produces, so that the economy is, moves around agriculture. So how do you keep the youth of Africa not move from rural areas to cities? quite frankly, I don't care. You know, they can go to a city and work on distribution. They can go to a city and for example, I'll just state an example in one of the countries of West Africa. We saw that a lot of young people are graduating from agronomy school, and they don't go to agriculture. And say, why is this? You know, you have a lot of arable land, and they look at you, you know, because for them, you know, agriculture is this very tedious work, etc. And then I said, I can't hire them as agronomists. I have to hire them as big data specialists, IT, etc. So we came up with a tablet. I say, you go to the farmer with this tablet, and you ask them questions, and you input all the data in here. And the data will go to a central point, and we'll analyze it, and we'll go back, and you can be a consultant to the farmer. And these guys start smiling and say, oh, I like this job, you know. When do I start? So really, it's you have to find ways to get people going, get people excited. So,
sorry, can I cut you short and ask you to directly address the idea of the percentage on young women, the girl child? Why do my researchers reveal such a high percentage for North Africa? Is that a cultural construct? To what is it owed?
Yeah, probably a cultural, probably a consequence of the culture. I think in North Africa and in, I don't know all the percentages, but also in the rest of Africa. At OCP Africa, we have 60% women, so we do our share of, so I can't resolve all the problems of the world. I can just show an example. So if for the same competency skill, I hire a woman rather than a man. But you know, I can't change the whole North Africa. You know, it's we will get there.